Greetings, my name's Andrew Sumner. My grandfather, Pop Smythe, bought me my first comic book in Liverpool, England, when I was 3 years old, and I spent the next 50 years hurtling around the pop culture kaleidoscope, first as a fan, and then as a journalist, editor, publisher and presenter. Along the way, I met a bunch of interesting people who will be joining me here, creators, performers, professionals and public servants. We live in divisive, fractured times, but art and popular culture connect people from all viewpoints and from all walks of life. I'm often struck by the passions people enjoy, that they can set aside their differences for and agree on whatever those passions are, whether I share them or not. And that spark, that moment of instinctive, connective agreement, that's what I call a hard agree. Did you ever meet any of the Rat?
Actually, I met most of the Rat Pack. In 1982, the first event that I ever did was for the hospital I had previously worked for, a hospital in Denver called National Jewish Hospital National Asthma Center. And we honored the cowboy singer, not, it'll come to me.
Like the movie Cowboy Singer?
Yeah.
Well,
the guy who was very rich, who they have a museum for in Los Angeles, Gene Autry.
Yeah, Gene Autry. Yeah.
So we were honoring Gene Autry, who knew everybody. And I had Richard Nixon did a public service announcement for him.
Brilliant.
And I have a whole story about getting a phone call at 7:00 in the morning from Richard Nixon asking me about this script I wanted him to produce. But the person who was on the board of the Gene Autry Museum was a lovely guy by the name of Stan Schneider, an accountant. And he was Gene Autry's accountant and also Glenn Campbell's accountant. And when he opened the Gene Autry Museum, I had already known Sammy Davis Jr. a little bit, but I got to meet Sinatra. I knew because I knew his agent, Dean Martin. And then there's, again, if you want to go into the second part, it's one of the worst experiences of my life that I had with a Nickelodeon TV Land friend of mine named Paul Ward when we went out to Joey Bishop's house in Newport Beach, and I just couldn't stand him.
Welcome to Hard Agree. I'm Andrew Sumner. I'm here with one of my very good friends, a celebrity agent par excellence, Barry Greenberg. How are you, mate?
I am great. It has certainly been an interesting day, and this is a lovely way for me to end the day.
Me too, brother. No, it really is.
It's really late where you are.
Yeah. It's late, but it's never too late for Barry Greenberg. That's my motto.
Exactly. I love hearing that. Should be everyone's motto.
So, Barry, you've had a really interesting career, and we've known each other for quite a long time now. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But I thought where I'd really like to start is if you could just walk me through your career and how you got to this point.
My career started when I was a broadcaster in the Air Force.
Yeah.
I was in Panama.
Yeah.
In the Air Force. Now, it's at this point that I tell people, I don't mean the Panamanian Air Force, I mean the American Air Force. And there were people in Panama who wanted to create new treaties with Panama. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that, but it seemed to me that President Johnson in 1964 had made a promise to do that, and that this could be an interesting project to be undertaken, and that it needed a celebrity. And so here I am, I'm a DJ at Armed Forces Radio, and I just decided that a guy named Harry Chapin should be the celebrity for promoting new treaties with Panama. So I find a way to get out of the Air Force a little bit early. I come back to New York and I pick up the Suffolk County. We have a Suffolk in Long Island as well, the white pages of the phone book, and I thumb through and I find H. Chapin. And I call up and I say, this Harry Chapin? And he said, yeah. I said, this is Barry Greenberg, and I want to talk to you about these Panama things. He said, oh, I don't know anything about that, but come on out tomorrow. We'll have lunch. So that was my first celebrity interaction and a relationship that lasted 8 years with a guy that I never spoke to again about the Panama thing, but we did a lot of...
This is Harry Chapin who recorded Cats in the Cradle, right?
Yes. This is Harry Chapin, Cats in the Cradle, WOLD, that Taxi, that guy. The next thing I did for Crown and Country was I started to provide a lot of celebrities for a friend who had dinner theaters in Canada. So I would do some public service announcements and a lot of going to Ed McMahon's house early in the morning to shoot some random public service announcement. And I would get celebrities to do these various dinner theaters in Canada. And sometimes I had as many as 3 celebrities at one time in the dinner theaters. I did a little bit of management early on. When I say management, it's more like, those were back in the days when a manager was a hand holder and sometimes picked up the celebrity's dry cleaning. So back in the 80s, the first person who I managed was a lovely gentleman by the name of Ray Bolger.
Oh, yeah, right on.
From The Wizard of Oz.
The Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz.
Then he got sick, and so part of it wasn't my responsibility, but I had somebody on staff who would take him for his chemo treatments or radiation treatments. So it was bizarre, and then I started working with other people. I had a wonderful 4+ years managing Elliot Gould, who's still among my closest Andrew Sumner level friends. And then in the middle of this whole 39 years, I had almost 20 years where I tripped into, I was managing Dick Martin from Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In at the time. So we had a lot of socialization at his country club with people like Bob Newhart, who was there all the time, and Mike Connors from Mannix. And so Newhart came up to us at lunch one day and wanted to know something about a cable TV outlet called Nick at Night, which was Nickelodeon's kids network. And so I went to Nickelodeon to ask how Bob Newhart's show was doing at his request. And they latched on to the fact that maybe I had access to Mr. Newhart. And so a whole other aspect of my career was born. And I spent almost 20 years doing work for Nick at Night and TV Land, which was some of the best times I ever had.
And Barry, what was the fabric of that work? What did you used to put together for Nick at Night and for TV Land?
They would have every single kind of wackadoodle idea for utilizing celebrities. Again, Mike Connors and our mutual friend Adam West, and just hundreds of celebrities. And their annual TV show, the TV Land Awards, used not only scores of celebrities, but also dozens of cast reunions. So I became pretty well known for putting old TV casts together. And it was, I went through thousands of celebrity acquisitions over those years. They put some under contract. It was Viacom. It was just a great heady time. They weren't afraid to spend money. Their philosophy was, if they were coming to the end of the year and had some money left over, let's just pay a celebrity for 20 appearances and we'll use them up in the next couple of years or something. So,
Barry, from that era in your life when you were working with Nick at Night and with TV Land, who are the standout celebrities that you worked with? Who are the people that you formed the closest relationships with?
It's an interesting question. The people that I have the closest relationships with certainly warrant some of the biggest celebrities. Like right now, I'm working, some 30 years after he did a play for me in Canada, if we can go back to that, I'm working very closely with Gabe Kaplan on several movies, on a TV show, on an article that was just published about his experience with another American show, Battle of the Network Stars.
Kaplan was the star of Welcome Back, Kotter, wasn't he?
Yes, he was Mr. Cotter.
Yeah, John Travolta and all those guys at the beginning of Travolta's career, right?
The very beginning of Travolta, and sadly, so many of the people on that show are no longer with us, except for Travolta and Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, his wife, who I was his wife on the show, who I was close with, passed away. I knew all the kids because they'd all been on the TV Land Awards.
Yeah,
they passed away. So I'm lucky we still have Gabe, and he and I are having a lot of fun together. Elliot Gould, I'm very close to. He wasn't necessarily part of that TV Land thing. I spent a lot of years working closely with all the Love Boat people. I was friends with Charo. I'm still friends with Bernie Capel and Gavin MacLeod. But remember, these people are getting into their 80s, some of them late 80s and 90s. I'm working on a project that we'll talk about, and it's just some amazing technology for doing interviews where you ask questions and the celebrities respond to you through AI. And it's amazing because when you and I are no longer here, 100 years from now, people will be able to be asking us questions and we'll be responding just like this. The artificial intelligence will pick up the answer through this Storyfile technology, and people will be answering. Well, we just had William Shatner do 5 days of Storyfile. Ed Asner just did 2 days of Storyfile. And we're going to start ramping up the celebrities doing Storyfile interviews. It's going to be extraordinary.
That's it. I've been reading about this, and you've been telling me about it. It's quite an extraordinary thing. Funnily enough, Ed Asner is literally the guy that I spoke to for the last episode of Hard Degree immediately before you, and I know he's a friend of yours. So it's a particularly nice piece of symmetry, us getting the chance to chat about this after me speaking to Ed.
I am thrilled that you spoke to him. I love him before he was 91, I might have said an older brother, but now I'm going to say more like a father. And, and Shatner, who is, as we record this, 90 years old.
He has to be the best preserved 90-year-old I've ever seen in my life. He's in amazing shape.
You know him. He's great.
I do. Yeah, he is. Thanks to you.
And, you should be thanking me for everything, you know.
I do. I really do, brother. I really do.
And again, respecting the period of time that this podcast was recorded, yesterday we lost Norman Lloyd, at 106 years old, who was amazing, who used to work with Charlie Chaplin and Orson Welles, and was all there until he was 106.
It's just amazing, really, because I was a big fan of his. Like a lot of people from my generation, when I was at college, I used to watch Saint Elsewhere every week. Yeah, and he was one of the big stars of Saint Elsewhere. He was in all 6 seasons, right? He was an amazing actor. And I remember you telling me when we were having lunch together, maybe about 2 years ago, that he was still alive. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, surely he has to be over 100. And he was like, yeah, he's 104. I just thought, that's amazing. He's just amazing.
He was playing doubles tennis until he was like 102 or something.
Just brilliant.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Amazing that he worked with Orson Welles, and he was in St. Elsewhere as well, and he was still alive till a few days ago. That's really incredible.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk more about your cyber, what's that process called? The immortalization, asking people in the future.
The for-profit company is called Storyfile.
Yeah, Storyfile. Yeah.
And the technology that allows for the interaction is called Conversa. I don't pretend to know anything about it. I'm just the celebrity guy.
Yeah.
But I do know this, that our friend Adam,
yes,
my former client Stan Lee, my friend Leonard Nimoy, if I had had those interviews, that interaction, and I'd been able to use that, in a Comic-Con setting, in a stage presentation, on an app, in a pair of AI goggles, and be able to ask those people hundreds of questions, it would be spectacular. So we've got to capture these interviews as we can.
Yeah, I absolutely. You're essentially the interactive 3D versions of those Museum of Television interviews that I've seen over the years.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, which are invaluable documents in themselves, and to have interactivity as well, that'd be amazing. I mean, imagine if you could have gone back 10 years and you could have got Jim Garner and all those guys as well.
Yeah, well, and we can't think about that. We have to move forward and try to get all the people who are still with us. I think
that's a noble pursuit, mate. You've kind of backed us into talking about something else I wanted to ask you. Now, when we first met, quite some time ago now, one of your primary focuses was putting together, was essentially wrangling celebrities on the live circuit, right? On the US and the global convention circuit.
Comic-Cons.
Yeah,
right.
The Comic-Cons. So how did you ease back into doing that? How did that find you?
So that goes to another friend of mine, and it's about 12 years ago. I got a phone call, as I do often, from Chris Knight, who's Peter Brady, the middle Brady Bunch brother. Yeah. And he said, I'm doing something called a Comic-Con, and it would be right up your alley. You should get involved with Comic-Cons. And I said, what's a Comic-Con? And he said, I want you to talk to these people. And I picked up the phone and called a head of a Comic-Con, a friend of mine now named Peter Katz, who runs Wizard World. And he was in, I think, Aruba. And he calls me, and and he had a Comic-Con coming up, and he wanted everybody to be there. They'd pay everyone's expenses, and so we did it on Pier in Manhattan, and it was Wizard's first big Comic-Con, and they were right. They paid hotels and limousines and airplanes and expenses, and we had all kinds of people come, the cast of Hill Street Blues and the original Warehouse 13 people. And it was, and then I realized that I could do this and partnered up with someone. That's another story in and of itself, but I became the Doctor Who Comic-Con person. And the thing at the time was that the agencies, this was found money for them. This was a new resource of income resource for them. So they were very amenable to it. And I spent, until the pandemic, about 10 years very successfully acquiring lots of lovely people for Comic-Cons, Benedict Cumberbatch and Orlando Bloom and Mark Ruffalo, and just scores of great A-name people. And they get paid pretty well. And so, it's nice work if you can get it.
Right on. Yeah, right on. And yeah, you did a lot of the Star Trek cast as well, right, mate?
Well, mostly my partner did, who I'm no longer partnered with, did a lot of the Star Trek people, but Shatner, Nimoy, George Takei, all of those people I'd worked with years ago. So I had those relationships and still maintain those relationships for things other than Comic-Cons, for commercials and other appearances. And
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when you when we first met, of course, I've told this story on this podcast before about when we first met and when you introduced me to Adam West. Could you talk a bit about your relationship with Adam and how you found him over the years?
Well, the beautiful thing about Adam is Adam had an agent, and we have to pay homage to Adam's agent, just a lovely, sweet, goofy guy by the name of Fred Westbrook, who's no longer with us. His legal name was Fred Wastbrock, but he anglicized it to Fred Westbrook, and he was the agent for 90% of the game show hosts. He had more game show knowledge than anybody in the industry. He represented, Monty Hall, and I don't know if that means anything there, but Peter Marshall.
I with my nodding acquaintance of US culture, I do know who these people are.
So he represented all these people, but the beautiful thing, and the thing that doesn't exist in Hollywood anymore, is that I would pick up the phone and I would say, Fred, I need Adam to be at the corner of 42nd and Broadway at 9:00 tomorrow morning for 10 minutes and, stand there holding a banana, and I'll pay him $5,000. And he'd say, great, we're done. And I'd say, do we need any paperwork or something? And in 5 minutes, I'd get a piece of paper written with a Sharpie that says something like, Adam West, $5,000 tomorrow with banana, signed Fred. And that was all we needed. I mean, you didn't need that. His word was his bond. And that was the extent of any documentation. Anything that Fred Westbrook said was golden. And there was a story that there was a time when, Adam wasn't doing as much between some of the Batman stuff and then when he went on Family Guy or, whatever the later stuff was.
Yeah, it was. He was the mayor of Quahog, wasn't he?
Yeah. And I supposedly got him a gig doing something. And, I don't remember it. I don't remember it at all. But Fred would always say, Barry, Adam appreciates what you did for him. When he was down and out, you were the only one who remembered him, and he loved you for that. And it just warmed my heart. Whether or not it was accurate was irrelevant. It made me feel good. Just like your, Barry got Adam on the phone.
Oh, yeah,
me.
absolutely.
But those are the things that life is made up with, those little moments.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. And I've dedicated my life to trying to deliver those moments for some people. What I love about you, mate, is you're the person who delivers those moments for me. And you've done it several times when I least expect it. And if anybody's listening to this, go check out the episode, How Batman 66 Changed My Life, which is essentially me talking about my lifelong relationship with Batman. And at a certain point, it becomes about me talking about my now lifelong relationship with Barry Greenberg and how we intersected and how he introduced me to Adam, which is a very moving moment. But what I love about you, mate, is that is not the only time things like that have happened. And there have been a bunch of other people I've got to know, some of my great TV heroes, William Shatner being another one of them, and some of my music heroes, many of whom are the reason I've got to know these people is thanks to Barry Greenberg. And Barry's got a great habit of picking up on cues just seemingly in the middle of completely unexpectedly. So I'm going to tell this story, mate, because it's about you. And to me, this is completely emblematic of the way you are. About 18 months ago, maybe, I was watching one of my all-time favorite Robert Altman films, The Long Goodbye. I just bought the new Blu-ray of it. And I took a screenshot of a moment in the film that I really liked, of Elliot Gould as Philip Marlowe in the early 70s smoking a cigarette. And I put it up on Instagram with the remark, it was a thing that Marlowe says a lot in this movie, which I'll reference in a second for a reason. And I'm sitting there in my lounge, and it's maybe about 12:30 at night. And I get a phone call come in from Barry. And I'm like, oh, wow, Barry's called me, I better take this. Come on the phone. And Barry immediately starts talking at me. But I've noticed that, his voice is kind of an octave deeper and sounds different. And he starts talking about, because I go, hey, pal. And who I think is Barry comes along and goes in this octave lower voice, hey, pal. So I take it you've been posting pictures of me on Instagram. And I didn't know what the fuck was going on at first. And I'm like, yeah, I have. And he goes, was I saying it's okay with me? And then it just all dropped into my mind. Holy fuck, I'm talking to Elliot Gould. And that's exactly what I'd written on the Instagram comment, because that's what his version of Philip Marlowe says all the way through the movie. And as a result of that, I was on the phone for half an hour chatting with Elliot Gould, completely unexpectedly on like a Wednesday night midweek. And that, to me, is a pure Barry Greenberg moment, because you could have never known it was coming, but it gave me tremendous joy.
There is this joke that, when we do the 6-hour version of the podcast, the joke ends with these friends standing in St. Mark's Square, looking up as two people enter the balcony far off in the distance, and the people who are in the square tap a nun on the shoulder and say, who are those people on the balcony? And the nun says, I don't know who the guy with the white beanie is, but the guy on the left is Barry Greenberg. So, I won't tell the whole version of the joke.
I love it, mate. So how did you worked with Elliot for quite a long time. How did you first meet him?
I picked up the phone. See, this goes back to a period in time when you could figure out how to get to people. And I had no shame. So somebody offered me a personal appearance for Elliot, and I picked up the phone and I said, Mr. Gould, this is Barry Greenberg. I have a client who would like you to speak at their dinner, and, it's this amount of money. And he said, I'm too busy to talk to you about it now. I can't talk about it now. I'm on my way to Italy. I said, as only I can say, okay, why don't you pick me up a tie when you're there? Elliot Gould comes back and says, what the fuck are you talking about? Where you want me to pick you up a tie? And he hung up the phone. 5 minutes later, I get a phone call back from Elliot Gould. He said, somebody was listening to me talking to you. Do you think I was being mean to you on the phone? I said, no. I totally understand you were being, cheeky or whatever. So Elliot comes back from Italy, calls me up, says, I have your tie. We happen to meet at a party. This is, like 89 or something. A lot of stuff going on for me in the mid to late 90s. And he said, we're standing around at a party, and he said, we have to work together. Well, to some people, we have to work together means one of these days we'll do something together. I woke up the next morning and started managing Elliot Gould. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. And so we did 4.5 years together. We did Bugsy, and he did the Melendez brothers.
Yeah.
He started Friends at that time. It was
it was a great era. It was, it would have been on the approach road to Ocean's 11, I guess. That must have been,
Yes, I didn't get the Ocean's 11 money, but you know what? I'm so happy for Elliot, and he has a whole lot of family responsibilities that he steps up to and takes care of, and it's not always easy. And he's, I think, 82 now. So
yeah, and the thing is, what's great about him is perhaps after having had some wilderness time, after being such a massive star, and then being not quite as big a star for a period of time, what I'm very pleased about for him is that he's kind of fully embraced icon status, and he's treated with the reverence that he deserves.
Well, he certainly does deserve it. Cover of Time magazine, Oscar nominee, having to put up with Barbara. So he's got it all.
Yeah, no, he's a great bloke. I was very charmed by him, and I've always loved his work. And you're actually very tight with Bill Shatner as well, aren't you? Who you did mention earlier on, but you guys have done a lot together.
Yes, he is an extraordinarily accessible guy. He loves new technology. You would never think. He loves new ideas. And he has more hobbies than anybody I've ever known. I think he was riding motorcycles until he was 88.
Yeah, amazing.
I'll be lucky to stay on mine till I'm 70. He's got the whole horse thing and the sulky riding and the horse thing where he's backing up the horses. And,
all that dressage type stuff.
Right. He's got his own charity for therapeutic riding for kids, gives a lot of money out for that. He's got kids and grandkids and quite the fascinating life. He's a wine connoisseur. You name it, Bill does it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think surely the key to his, continue the great shape that that he's in, and his continued existence is, in fact, the fact that he never seems to slow down. He just keeps on rolling all the time, keeps himself busy.
That he does.
Yeah, and Barry, to wind up, you're focusing on your new endeavor, which is incredibly exciting stuff. Can you share about anybody else you've got lined up for that, or is it all under wraps at the moment?
It sadly is under wraps at this moment, but when we do our second podcast,
Yeah.
I'll let you know. Right now we're concentrating on a lot of civil rights. We just did the poet Nikki Giovanni. We
Oh,
did.
I interviewed her a few weeks ago, Nikki Giovanni. She is
Oh,
amazing.
really?
Yeah, she's a national treasure. She's incredible.
We did Andrew Young. We've got NASA astronaut and Vietnam pilot Fred Gregory. We interviewed Daniel Smith, who is one of the two living children of a slave alive in the country, but because we're doing a lot of civil rights programming. But as I have more time and more freedom, we're going to move closer to the pure celebrity interactions. And, trying to get those 80 plus age people to make sure that those histories aren't lost.
Yeah, and as I said before, mate, I think that's a noble endeavor, and if anybody's the man to do it, you are.
I appreciate that, but I'm
true.
Still just did a commercial this morning with Gary Sinise where we've got lots of legitimate corporate commercial things that we're doing. I just started a voluntary involvement with the museum up here in Oregon that houses the Spruce Goose, and I'm very excited to be running the Spruce Goose Advisory Board because that's a phenomenal piece of history. Do a little stuff with my kids and Boy Scouts, so I'm all over the place. I like it that way.
Yeah, and I like it that you like it that way. Yeah, I mean that's your thing. Before we go, Barry, have you got any stories about Stan Lee? How was your relationship with him?
It was my Stan Lee relationship was pretty peripheral. It was, when I was partnered with somebody in the Comic-Con space, lovely guy, only was with him a handful of times. And, I do get concerned very seriously when some of the talent get to be a certain age and it feels like they're being almost dragged around to these events. It's of concern to me. Now, I don't think we need to, in the States, at least there was a mandatory retirement age for pilots at 65 or something. I don't know if we need to create a mandatory Comic-Con retirement age, but there are some people out there that probably shouldn't be, and I'm very sensitive to that.
Yeah, I can think of some examples myself, and I'm very glad that you're sensitive to that. And I think that dovetails into, again, what you're trying to achieve in terms of, crystallizing people at their peak for posterity rather. That's again, kind of that it all really ties into the same thing. I mean, there's a certain point with people, and you work in the events business, where you want them to be able to sit at home, relax, enjoy themselves, look back over everything they've achieved, and smile rather than feel like they're having to sign, 1,000 posters in half an hour.
And we want them to have had guidance in their lives that allows them to have the financial freedom to do that and not have people in their lives on any level who are taking advantage of their celebrity.
Yeah.
I think that's, people at some point need to just sit back and, unless they're that Bill Shatner energy level that you feel can legitimately do it, you should be really sensitive when you're taking some of these people around. There is one guy I have in mind who has been very sick and is in a wheelchair. There are actually two that still go to Comic-Cons, and it's of concern to me.
Yeah, are they getting something out of it, do you think, or do you think they are like chasing a commitment?
I think that there are people who surround some of these people who just see this as an easy way to not turn down some money.
No, I get it, mate. And I know the reason we've transitioned into this without going into detail about this specific point is that Stan himself was surrounded by a large number of interested parties, shall we say, who I didn't feel en masse had his best interests at heart in the twilight of his years. I mean, he lived a long and productive life, but I remember in the year or two post Joni, his wife dying, things got pretty chaotic for Stan, it seemed, from the outside. As somebody who often walked past him at events, and as I know that you did, I could see a kind of change in the way things looked.
If you want to do the bonus round, you can just throw out 10 celebrity names and I'll give you a knee-jerk reaction to them.
Oh, mate, I would love to do this. Oh, I've got to think. I think
we should end this on more of an upbeat.
Oh, absolutely, mate. And I'm all over. Me, I'm a positivist. So I love that idea. Right, okay. I'm going to try and get a cross section of names for you. Okay, James Caan.
Jimmy Caan. All I know about Jimmy Caan is through Elliot, who talks about him all the time. May have met him once. That's it. But okay, wait, who's Siegel? George Siegel.
George Siegel, yeah.
George Siegel. So, because I put them in the same category. And that dinner theater that I was talking about, the Canadian dinner theaters, I asked Elliot once, don't know what this means. I said, would you like to go up there for a few weeks and do love letters? He said, yes, but only if I can do it with George Siegel. And which was an interesting thing probably 20 years ago. Yeah. And it always stuck in my head.
Did that actually happen, mate?
Oh, yeah. No, he didn't do it, but he did say it.
He did say it. He didn't do it. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
I love that, mate. That is fantastic. Let's take a crack at somebody else. How about Tom Selleck?
Tom Selleck, I happen to be, I was never a Magnum PI fan.
Yeah.
But I am the biggest fan of Tom Selleck in Blue Bloods.
Oh, man. So is my dad, by the way.
It's like my favorite show.
Yeah, my dad's favorite show.
Tom didn't do himself any favors here with some controversy that he had over watering his property using a fire hydrant. But I always felt an affinity for him because he had been in the National Guard. At least he's rumored to have been in the National Guard, and I believe that story. So I like Tom Selleck.
Ah, brilliant. Speaking of guys who are in that space, did you ever meet Robert Urich?
Robert Urich, yes, I met Robert Urich. I never quite got what the Robert Urich thing was, but I did have friends whose backyard abutted his house. That was my closest encounter with Robert Urich, was like over a fence.
Wow. And who have been your favorite members of the Doctor Who cast over the years? Who are the ones you've enjoyed working with?
Well, I've had more late night fun with Matt Smith than anyone is entitled to have. And this is challenging because I left my Doctor Who life behind when I left my partnership. I adore Arthur Darvill, Karen Gillan.
You introduced me to Darvill, by the way, mate.
There you go. Another one of I don't know who the guy in the balcony is.
Did you ever deal with Tennant?
Yes, and I like Tennant very much, but and maybe it's that I never spent that much time with him, but he was a little more proper than the Matt Smith relationship.
Yeah.
Which was, so, I mean, I can pick up the phone and call either of them, but David's going to be always going to be a little more British.
Yeah, understood. And speaking of people who are very British, but and a different kind of very British person, did you have much to do with Patrick Stewart over the years?
I am in touch with Patrick Stewart. I like him very much. We we got along very well, but I didn't have a business relationship with him. So yeah, and he's also a really fun guy.
Yeah. I interviewed him for the NME years ago, and when I used to work for the NME, which is a well-known music paper in the UK, back when I was a journalist, and it was when the movie First Contact came out. He was a very nice guy. I really enjoyed his company, which has kind of made me, just saying that has made me think about a couple of other people.
But let me just say, and I haven't said this for years, but in dealing with all the celebrities, I have to deal with a lot of their representatives.
Yeah.
And I don't want to throw an entire nation under a bus, which again would probably be our third podcast. I could do that. But I have had such extraordinary times dealing with the UK agents and managers in terms of their responsiveness. I mean, all you need to do in this business is pick up the phone, ask a question, and get a legitimate answer. And when you have a life where you're really just trying to get answers out of people and you can't, versus you ask a question of an agent in London and they're responsible and back with you. And, I am, as was said many times, especially over the last 4 years, that whole stupid idea with the tax on the tea and everything was ridiculous. We should have just stayed part of England. We would have all been much better off. You had another couple of names. Sorry.
I did. Yeah, I did. That's temporarily distracting me, though, mate. That's awesome. I love it. Well said, brother. Did you ever run into Schwarzenegger?
Yes, and I actually have some open-ended Comic-Con and Storyfile things going on with Schwarzenegger right now. He's miraculous. He gets and is entitled to a lot of money for what he does, and good on him if he can get it. And I mean, who doesn't love Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No, right.
I knew him back early in the day, and then when he was governor, he had a restaurant in Beverly Hills. He would sit there and hold court, and it was, I'm having some calzone or something, and he's Arnold sitting at the next table.
You have been listening to the one, the only, my friend, Barry Greenberg, perhaps the most entertaining man in Hollywood, certainly the most entertaining man in Oregon, accept no substitutes. And Barry, it's been a great pleasure knowing you all these years. Thanks so much for shaking out the time for me tonight, mate.
Anytime you want, we can do episodes 4 and 5 and 6, whenever you want to do them.
We'll get it done, brother.
Much love to you.
Much love to you, brother. You take care of yourself, and I'll see you very soon. You've been listening to Hard Agree. This episode was edited by John Horsley and Kenrick Regan, and our theme music, Golden, was written and performed for this show by Liverpool's finest band, DENIO. Hard Agree is a production of the Spoilerverse and myself, Andrew Sumner.